Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's uLaw webinar. The topic for today's webinar is business reporting. Today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD credits. I just want to make sure that you're made aware of that. It's going to be a deeper dive into showcasing the many reporting capabilities that the uLaw platform provides you as a practitioner or someone who's using the platform, and the benefits of these reports and the various categories in which these reports come under. It's going to be a bit of a presentation, setting the context, and then a deeper dive as we walk you through the product in itself and the various reporting capabilities across the platform. Like always, please do use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have, and both myself and my support staff would do our best to answer those at any given time. Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has this specific agenda. The agenda is where we're going to be covering, as I mentioned before, the reporting capabilities, all of the different types of reports that we generate or allow you to generate for various different questions that you may have. The reports pretty much give you the answers for many of these different reports. Of course, there are certain reports that are more compliance in nature, which again are questions being asked by the Law Society in terms of your ledgers and journals, wanting to understand of how you've appropriated the trust funds and the general funds, and the ledgers and journals provide the answers through the numbers in those reports so that it's a little more clear-cut in a specific format that it's expected in, right? So the uLaw platform gives you both the compliance-related reports, the ledgers, journals, reconciliations, as well as other various different types of reports that are more business-centric for you as the owner of the business, someone who's the front office manager, wanting to understand where are you getting a lot of your clients from, source of contact. So we pretty much have reports across the top 4 or 5 areas that we cover as the platform, right from the contact level to the matters, the accounting level reporting, which of course also encompasses the major compliance reports. We have reports across your timesheets and calendars, so really talking about how you've pretty much utilized your time. And we, of course, further subdivide the answers with regards to, within your different clientele, where have you spent the most time, who has made the most money within your firm, things of that nature. And of course, we have the question mark, which is something that you find across specifically the matter page, which gives you a lot of insight into each and every file. Not so much a report, but it definitely is a great snapshot for you to keep in mind, and we want to draw your attention to walking you through some of the capability of that question mark. And you would find that question mark across your uLaw app. So if you haven't already downloaded the app, we highly recommend that you download the app both across Android and iOS, and it's free of charge. You just use your same username, password, and you should be good to go. Okay? So we'll definitely start with the contact level reports. These are some of the top 3 reports that we believe makes a lot of sense to you as a business owner, something that you can quickly generate and have a better appreciation for the answers out of these reports. One is, of course, the source of contact, which is one of my favorite reports where a lot of my demonstrations I walk customers through the importance of this report. Keep in mind that the source of contact is a compliance report as well. It's being asked in a lot of audits, but it's also a great marketing report where it gives you a perspective of where you're getting your clients from, and that's really the essence of that report. The fee book gives you an appreciation for where your client stands with regards to revenue being made, with regards to payments being made, and of course, a contact list within the contacts reporting capability gives you and your firm an ability to quickly draw out all of the clients that you're dealing with across various different groups that you may have created as part of managing those contacts. Before I run into the matter reports, let me see if I can quickly jump into the uLaw platform, and we'll try and mix this up a little bit this afternoon, where let me walk you through those 3 contact level reports that we just spoke about. So I'm logged into my fixed use legal practitioner, Roger Moore, and within the platform, of course, you see these different menu options. One of the key options is that of the contacts in itself. So I'm going to just click on the contacts on my top left here. And in the uLaw platform, you would pretty much find all of the reports that you can print and generate really under our document generation tab. Okay. Now we also have this compliance button across all our screens, or a majority of our screens, that isolate or categorize reports that are more compliance in nature. Okay. So depending on your need for a reporting capability, you can either jump into the compliance or under document generation. And we spoke about the source of contact report, and we also find it under compliance. And let me just generate that for this year. Whether it's a law society audit that's being conducted and they're asking you for it, or if you really as a business want to understand where your different clients are coming from, this is that report. Now, in software and of course in utilizing and reporting capabilities, data in is data out. So the quality of the report really comes down to the quality of the data that resides in your database. And let me give you an example. So in this particular report that you could see, you notice that a good 22% of the different clients that you've done your client intake for have maybe shared with you that they understood or got to know about your firm through a family member. Another 22% said that they found you through a Facebook ad maybe. Another 16% came through client referrals, so existing clients who referred you, and 19% came from others, so maybe they didn't really share how they got to know your firm. Now, where is this data coming out of? When you actually do a client intake, there is this particular field called source of contact. Okay, so when you're adding the client, and whether it's you adding the client or if you're sending a link to a portal and the client's adding it themselves, we have the source of contact information being requested for, so they can at that particular time tell you that. Maybe at that particular time they don't know it, but hopefully before the end of the matter, you want to understand, at the end of the closure, saying, hey, how did you guys get to know us to begin with? It's always a good question to ask at the time of intake, preferably. And you can see uLaw also lists down all of the different clients that you have not marked a source of contact for. So for example, for Denise or Flather Denise, you don't have that information right now. So maybe at the time of closing this matter or during the process of the matter in itself, if you have the opportunity to ask that question, you can go and right away change that source of contact from null to something more meaningful. Maybe Denise got to know you through a family member. Now, as you update that information, that data in would now result in a new data out. So I'm going to generate that same report where previously you had family at 22%. The latest and the greatest information is now going to reflect something different. Let me open up the new document right here. And you can notice here that the family just went up to 25%. Okay, great question. So there's a question which says, not every contact is a client. What source can you record besides other? Now, the source of contact is primarily for the contacts that you're adding as a client. So when you say add new contact, you notice that you have clients. That is the primary group. And only for that do you have this concept of source of contact, right? Now, if you have, let's say, an opposing counsel that you want to add for, you're just going to add them as a representative. They're not a client, but they're a contact nevertheless that you need either to add as a party or just so you understand that they are a contact that you have to deal with. So they're in a different group. So uLaw gives you a starting list right from, defendants, applicants, landlords, tenants, really depending on the role that this contact is playing within your law firm. And you are now able to pretty much go in and add that accordingly, right? So if you notice right here, I'm going to skip this real quick. Now there's about 1,000 clients here, but you also have representatives. Now you could always add where you got this lead from or this particular contact from, but the source of contact report primarily reflects on the clients. So if you have an opposing counsel, let's say someone else outside the role of a client, then I would encourage you to add them not as a client, but add them as a different group. And you can even create your own group. Exactly. If the particular contact is not a client, again, you can never say no to more information. If you want to add it at any time, you want to search them up and really look at, exactly. So if you really want to be able to be very anal about how much of information you're storing, and if they're giving it to you, might as well take the opportunity to save it. But primarily the source of contact focuses on what's your source of lead coming from your clients, because the Law Society wants to also ensure that you're just not a firm that's passing clients along. They want to make sure that you're actually a firm that's working with files and clients. Okay. Let me take another quick example. I'm going to do another report, and that's to the client fee book. Now you can, of course, quickly do the show only that gives you perspective, and you can see the total invoice was $1,130, paid was $1,130, but there's trust funds received of $501, and you can see the trust funds would be withdrawn, so maybe a real estate matter. But if I were to generate that client fee book as an actual report, it kind of gives it to you almost like an invoice balance statement. Okay, this is not giving you a running of all the retainers and all. It's just talking about how much was invoiced, how much was paid, how much is the balance. If you want to understand your aging for this client, how soon did they pay you, or how soon did you do a trust transfer maybe in this case? You can clearly see we tell you that there is no record of any outstanding balance for this matter. And this is very important, and you can do this across clients, of course, but if you want to do it specifically to a client, especially if they have multiple matters, and if your front office really wants to get a better handle of the fee books or the aging nature of this client, then you have it right away. Now, some other interesting branding types of documents that you can generate as well include the envelopes or envelopes, and you can print this. You can leave your envelope on a printer and pretty much emboss right on top of it. Okay, but again, that's just fancy stuff. So 3 important reports that I'd like to draw your attention to. Source of contact, fee book, and yes, the contact list. So you could see here, if I wanted to generate the list of contacts, I can do it for a specific client. I can do it for just my clients. I can do it for my ghost clients. specifically for my representatives. That would pretty much give you a quick list of who you're dealing with. So here are all the representatives. And the question asked, in fact, in this particular report, I think this is a newer feature added. We, in fact, show you the source of contact type of breakdown. As where did you come to them? How did these representatives be involved? But to be honest, it's not the real source of contact nature of the report, but we're just giving you added information, really, about this group. Okay? And so much for contacts, right? Pretty much you're focusing on adding a new client and moving on to creating a file. After you've created the file, of course, there's more reporting and more data in to reflect. And that's where we go next. We go into moving to the next life cycle of that particular client, which is you've created the client, now you're creating a matter. Okay? Now there's a variety of reports that you can generate under a matter, right from timeline, so pretty much when did you do the intake, what was the first series of meetings that you've had, whatever you've done as part of your docketing. So again, data in, data out. If you have not entered the data, it's hard for the system to report on it. But if you have, then we kind of give you various different nuances of the data from various different angles. Right? That's the key. Some of the important reports can be compliant in nature, can be specific to the customer's need, such as the statement of activity or bill of costs. So if you're dealing with corporate clients, sometimes they do ask you for bill of costs, and some other clients as well, different areas of practices of various different needs. You can also generate a timesheet, if you will, specific to a matter. So if you want to understand who has put in the effort in that particular matter, if you have multiple individuals working on it, the timesheet reflects the work put in across these matters. A legal aid report, so if that particular matter is that of a legal aid nature, we have specific to the need of the Legal Aid Ontario reporting capability that tells you or gives it to you in a template that's more tailored towards that legal aid. And let me jump into the matter real quick. So we'll choose the same client here, James Bernard. Maybe not the best example. If this is not good enough, we'll switch to another possible matter. Again, you can either go into document generation and you see all these reports, or you can click on compliance that gives you specific compliant documents. Now, if you've participated in any of our previous webinars where we talk about everything practice management, we talk about the various different steps that you take and the compliant nature of the documents that you have to generate, this is a good glance of such documents. So if at that particular time or after the fact, you can generate right away a client ID verification document. These are compliant reports or forms or documents. So if the Law Society does ask you, how did you make sure that this is truly James Bernard, you could say, I got his driver's license. And this is a specific template tailored towards answering that question. Okay? So if you wanted to do a statement of activity, it's right under here. So it tells you you've spent 12 minutes on it. Again, you can see this is random data. Again, data in, data out, purchase of condo. Even with a closing letter, again, it's not a great report document, so I wouldn't even bother talking about it, but it's all under a compliance section. But I'll draw your attention real quick, and we'll jump into the additional reports that we can generate. But if you look at this question mark, now, right away, this question mark within a matter, and this is specific to this matter. Even if you have multiple matters under James' name, the question mark pretty much acts more focused towards that specific matter. It tells you in a quick glance. It's not so much as elaborate as a report, but tells you in a quick glance, almost like a report in a screen form, what's happened with this matter right now, right? So you've got one invoice, and it's been paid, you don't have to generate big reports to even get this information. When was that invoiced? It was on the 16th of July. Were there any money in trust? Yes, there was $5,130 and $501,130 rather. And that was withdrawn from trust as well. And when was that? That was on the 16th as well. If you wanted a quick ledger version of this information, here it is. Or if you needed an actual compliant nature of it, you can come in here and generate a trust statement. That would tell you in that specific ledger format, when did it come in, how was this paid, so now you know this was paid through a check, was deposited into the trust, how much was, again, this was money going towards the purchase of the condo and you wrote a check 456. This came out of trust. And today's webinar, the title for someone who's just joined us, it's Business Reporting, uLaw Business Reporting, and it's not accredited for any CPD credits. We have our CPD session next week. This is pretty much running you through the various reporting capabilities of the uLaw platform. So right away you have this particular report template as a ledger report, a little bit more granular, a little bit more detailed. Now under reports, as I mentioned, you have your timeline. This could be specific to the matter in itself. You can see on the 16th of July it started. It was last edited on the 16th of July as well. There was one particular item, docket, that was added, purchase of condo. An invoice was generated the same day. Of course, this is not a great example, but keep in mind as time moves and if you have different steps that you take, the timeline would be a lot more prudent and meaningful to that matter. Okay, so if you've not done this before, yeah, like work on the timeline reports. Pretty cool at that. The legal aid, I mean, when you're generating an invoice or a legal aid document, you can specify the client ID, client number, your certificate number, and all of that gets added. Okay, to give it to you in a certain format. And the timesheet. So if someone else worked on this or if there are multiple individuals, you can clearly see that this was a flat rate docket, but you had put in 12 minutes, and that's pretty much it. Alrighty, so we have a separate webinar that covers court forms, though you find that under reports. But the court forms are a webinar in themselves, where for the province of Ontario and just getting started for BC, we pretty much have the court forms done for various areas of practices, right from small claims to criminal. Okay. Okay. Again, if there are any other types of reports that, for example, that you need as a practitioner, and as long as we're storing the data or we find a way to store that data for you, we're also able to, as part of our ongoing enhancement to the platform, as part of that support, we are able to bring in those new reports for you. And that's a big positive with regards to how we help our clients get more out of the system. So these reports are not fixed in nature. They've been built over time, and they've been built based on the requirements that we think are critical to our clients, as well as feedback that we have received from our clients as well. Okay? Okay. And then we move along to the accounting reports. As I mentioned, this is where a big aspect of all the various financial reporting capabilities reside. This is where you have more bang for your buck with regards to data coming out of the system. And of course, this is one of the areas where we find a lot of our clients utilize the platform for. Starting again, keep in mind, I mentioned data in, data out. The uLaw platform is not just a legal accounting system. It's a full-fledged business accounting system, which means that if you are using the platform and its fullest capabilities, all the features involved, you don't need to, another QuickBooks or an accounting software in addition to this system. This system would suffice to give you those capabilities. So if you're looking to manage your business expenses, if you're looking to report on it, such as the HST of your business, maybe the expense report, your P&L, so you can generate them from the system and hand it over to your accountant. So we are a full platform which covers right from client intake to business accounting, right? So the accounting reports can be divided with regards to your compliance client matter related reports and the reporting section that covers everything related to your corporate or your business side of things. Okay? And there could be, and the beauty of a legal accounting system that has the business accounting system built in is to give you key critical reports where data merge between these two systems. So if you look at an expense report, you're not only reporting on the expenses incurred on behalf of your business, you're also reporting expenses incurred on behalf of a client called the disbursements. So the expense report merges data coming from both these sources if you're using the system to take that data in. And once you do that, you're going to see a bigger bang for your buck, better benefits coming out of it. Same thing with your HST report. HST paid, HST received. And hence, you're going to be paying HST with regards to your office expenses, maybe a purchase, and you'll be receiving HST through the revenue that you're getting through the invoices that you generate for your clients. So having the data come in through these different sources and being inputted into the system is smart enough to merge this data to give you a HST report. And let's look at that. Okay. So I'll first focus on the compliance nature of things and then focus on the office related reports. So under accounts, and you can see we just pretty much categorize them by the screen names themselves. And under compliance that we recently added where it's a monthly compliance and there's of course a yearly compliance need. From a yearly perspective, you have your provincial taxes depending on where you're from or where you do your business. Year-end documents, then these are more specific to the province of Alberta because we recently got audited by the Alberta government or the Law Society there rather, and we needed certain reporting capabilities to be a part of a platform that they would include talking about the platform to their practitioners. So we had to build specific reports specific to them. But if you really look at the monthly compliance, that's where a lot of the focus goes towards. And this is the discipline that the Law Society often talks about, is building these reports on a regular basis, at least on a month-to-month basis. And we've done many, many webinars focusing on these topics. So I'm not going to waste much of your time, but I'm definitely going to drill down on some of these important reports. For example, everyone needs to understand, especially if you're utilizing the trust account, the trust ledger, right? So generating the quarterly report, click of a button. This is, of course, a compliance report that for this quarter telling you all the different clients, right, from Fred Jr. to James Bernard, and any ledgers or outstanding balances, and a running balance at that. It tells you for John that they got the retainer of $765, and trust transfer was done, tells you initially was the disbursement of $200 that was taken away, and then they were both reported on that same invoice, and then $565 was probably your flat rate fee. But then later, you also received on the 14th an additional $400 in retainer, and that's sitting in the trust balance for this client. Okay? And for everyone else, there's a zero balance. So critical document, the ledger report, likewise the general if you notice for James Bernard, we received that $1,130. That clearly tells you that it was $1,000 plus the $130 in taxes. Right? When it comes to the accounting, of course, there's all about the numbers, the financials, but it's also about the time. So when did you receive it? There's two important aspects for your reconciliation is being able to capture it, but also capturing it in time. Because that's when you can close your books for a specific date range, preferably within that month end. Some interesting other documents, intermatter trust transfer. So if you're in the province of, or actually let me generate this across all provinces, of course, but I'll also generate the Form 9A. So in the province of Ontario, if you do make the transfer from electronically from a trust to general account, so there's no intermatter trust transfer for this date range. And while we're generating that, I'll switch to the Form 9A. So again, in the province of Ontario, if you're moving money from trust to general, especially if you're paying yourself doing that eligible trust transfer, and if you're doing it electronically, then they do request you to fill out this form. And if you've given us this information either in your settings or if you've entered it while generating the Form 9A, we are able to capture it. And you don't even have to generate the form at that particular time. We can pretty much give you all the Form 9As at one shot for you to fill out and sign when you need it. All of this under the compliance. So still there's no intermatter trust transfer, so I'm going to skip that. So, long story short, you understand that within the compliance button, you have the reports that are more specific to the nature of that need. And the other reports outside of the compliance can be found under document generation. And we mentioned about the expense report, though it's a compliance document. I'll walk you through this real quick. And again, this is, I would say, the importance of a system such as uLaw that can combine the legal accounting and the business accounting aspects of your business, right? So client expenses, about $600. Office expenses, about $300. Actually, office expenses are divided into printing, Law Society of Ontario, and office supplies. So there's a lot more to this, and I'll generate this for better date range. There you go. So you have more appreciation for that. And we spoke about the HST document. So right at the top, depending on whichever tax jurisdiction is important to you, and depending on the cycle of payment, you can decide and generate this document. And this is what I was talking about. Within that date range, we pretty much capture HST paid. So this is the data entry you've made to enter an office expense that you incurred on the 9th of July when you bought paper from Walmart. On the same day, through the revenue that you generated, through the invoice that you had generated for Petra, you had actually raised a HST, or the client paid you a HST of $65. So you received that $65, and so on and so forth. Then you paid LSO $15 taxes, another $10 for a purchase of a computer monitor, so on and so forth. At the end of the whole time period, we just tell you, we summarize it and we tell you, you owe the government $893. Okay, that's the bottom line. If you have two different systems, then you of course have to do the individual math, combine them, do the subtraction, etc. But the fact that if you're able to utilize the system in its fullest capacity and it's the way it was meant to be, then you can generate these HST reports. Click of a button. The expense book. That's another compliance document. Very similar to HST, as I mentioned, the expense book captures expenses both for office expenses as well as for business expenses. And you can clearly see here for the paper for Walmart for business, it's clearly marked as a business expense. You know how much of expense is incurred. And if this was a disbursement, because then it's for a client, you can clearly see it was for a file, then that's captured too. So this is a compliance document that is very important for you to find a way to put the data together. Okay. Of course, the reconciliation report is a compliance document, and there's a lot of factors that go into this. As you enter your different transactions, they show up here, and you're able to quickly and fastly reconcile. We did a full-fledged webinar just on the reconciliation document and how you manage trust and general reconciliation. Do search it up on our YouTube channel. And of course, from a business standpoint, this is critical. You can generate your balance sheet. Sometimes people charge you an arm and a leg to generate this document. Once again, if you're utilizing it the right way, you can certainly start to understand how best you can put this together. So, there you go. Click of a button tells you your balance sheet for your entire business, where your assets are, your liabilities are. Okay? And one last report that I'll probably highlight, and this is something that we've often been asked, and we built this report for that specific nature. Often you want to understand your trust balances. Of course, when you generate a reconciliation report, you get that. But if you want to generate it as of today, what is your trust balance, right? How much of trust money do I have sitting? We'll just give it a minute here. There's quite a bit of data, so we'll leave that to run behind the scene. Another important report, I'm not sure if many of you have used this, but it's the Invoice Balance. We have a new feature called Invoice Balance by Matter. It tells you pretty much how much money is owed. Oh, again, lack of data. And there is your trust balance report. Okay, so it tells you by date range or date. And we also color code these. And often we ask, why is this in a different color? So there is, of course, a certain time period for which you can hold on to your trust funds on behalf of a client. And after that, it's best and it's recommended that you refund that retainer and zero out the balance. So the ones that are relatively a little bit more closer to today's date are in brown. If they're further away, like 8 years, 10 years, they would probably be in red. Then it's probably high time to review them on a regular basis and then do what's necessary. And the ones in black, of course, are more recent. They're in the 2020s. And you can clearly see even for Mo, there's that $400 retainer we were talking about. Adding your total trust balance at $494,000. Okay? All right. And you can see a lot of the reports and the ones that probably resonate best around finances and timelines come under the account section. I mentioned about the invoice balance. We do it for the whole year. This could take a while. I'm trying to cover, again, please do use the chat window if there are any specific reports that you're looking to understand. I will get to the pro bono, which is a very interesting report. And here you go. Invoice balance by matter tells you by specific matter where it is. So you've invoiced 802, that was totally paid. Trust funds received of 800, total funds, trust balance 27. Whereas in this case, there's about $29.38 remaining from the customer. Payment is required. In this case, you have a pending trust transfer. So there's $1,559 in this purchase of a house that's readily available for you to do the transfer. It's just that you've not done it yet. So this is how you can quickly look at a report and make your money. Right, so Brown versus Chang, you can clearly see there's $925 sitting in their trust balance to be moved over. That's your earned money, pending trust transfer. So right at the bottom, you can clearly see there's about $4,000 of just money sitting to be made, and another $9,000 or $19,000 of money that you need to receive from clients. Okay? Again, if you are very specific about the date range, of course, you can have your aging report, which tells you or what date range or how long have they not paid you this money, right? So that's a different question and a report for that specific question. So feel free, again, we talked about the pro bono, so let me go into the pro bono report for the year. So anytime you mark, while docketing, if you mark a docket as a pro bono, then uLaw right away captures that and gives it to you in this form. So you can clearly see starting from the 5th of February till the 14th of July, here are the different clients that you've marked as a pro bono. Click of a button. And of course you can do your P&L. And if you are a growing legal firm where there are multiple partners involved and you have money being put into the business, so if it's a borrowings report or if there's how much of capital has been infused into the business, you have various other reports that talk about that. Report on capital, report on the drawings done across businesses. Okay? So take it for a spin. Look at all the different reports, the capabilities, all under document generation. And I move along to the calendar. So these are all the time-based reporting. So accounts was all about the money or a date range. Calendar talks about the effort or a date range and where the money and where the effort was put in, what was planned as an effort, and how much was paid off, right? So under calendar, if you go under action, you have these various different timesheets. I'm just going to generate one for this quarter. And this is the fun element of a web-based system, that you can generate them parallelly. So one of the interesting reports that I find is revenue by the client revenue. So where did the time go? How much money was made? So here is for the date range, the different dockets across the clients, and the docket name and the file name. I can draw your attention to this. So these are all the different clients with the estimated hours and the billable hours. So you had estimated an hour for this particular client, and you bill them more than what you estimated. Okay. Now, here's an important element of that timesheet. So if there are multiple individuals involved in the docketing across files within a specific file, and if they're docketing their effort in, so if you're a growing firm and let's say there are multiple legal practitioners in your business, in this case, of course, you can see there's just Roger Moore, but let's say there was another person, Andy, who is also docketing his effort. You would also find Andy here as a line item under the service provider. Okay. You could have assistants, you could have co-workers, and that's where the granularity of our permission rule comes in. So if you're not familiar, again, if you're a sole practitioner, if you're the only one using, that's a different item. But if you have the need for an added assistant user, co-workers, who could be other practitioners, then you can add that into the system at any time. And then you can control the permission model of who can see what. Okay. And this is by the client. You can see James Bernard, the revenue generated, the amount of estimated time, billable time, and the revenue generated. How cool is that? So in a snapshot, you get to know how much of time you put in, how much of revenue you made, and if it was a meaningful transaction. Right? So if you're charging by the hour, and if you're charging, let's say, $250, this is really good money that you made out of good profitable revenue generated. Right? Okay. So that's under calendar and under action. The last report that I want to really highlight here is what we call as the work in progress. In fact, we brought that under your compliance nature. So the work in progress is a really important document within a legal office. Right? So this is capturing now, of course, the planned work and how are you performing against that planned work. So this clearly tells you that there's an unbilled flat fee of $1,200 for Jonathan in the civil matter. Okay? There's 6 hours of unbilled hours for Thomas Edison in this WSIB claim. Now this is critical because you utilize this now to make the money and convert time into money. Because sometimes you may have docketed the effort, but it may have not reflected in an invoice. Unless you generate that invoice, whether it's a trust transfer or whether it's payment, you can't make that money yet. So the work in progress report, very critical, so you can find that under calendar, or if it's simpler for you, you can find that under quick view. And there we also have this important report called Work in Progress Disbursement. This is relatively a new report. And the reason for this is many of the different matters that we find our customers are dealing with are disbursements heavy at first. So a lot of the matters are where the clients are spending a lot of their money out of their own pocket, especially if you're not having a trust or a retainer to back you up. And it's very critical to keep a tab on all those disbursement numbers, right? So you can see here for Danny, as well as the personal injury matter for Frederick Brown, there's about $325 worth of disbursements, or in fact $367, that needs to be invoiced right now. So how you approach this is you go into the matter itself, and let's go into 473. Okay, so you can search up the particular matter. There it is. Click on it, go into the matter. You can clearly see the status of this particular matter is invoice pending. Go ahead and generate that invoice. Of course, you work with your client to get that paid, depending on your engagement letter and policies and the rules that govern how soon the customer has to pay you. Okay? So I know I've just added this in the last minute. There are reports under Quick View 2, and a critical report of that for you to consider is the work in progress, also specifically done for disbursements. Okay? There you go. Invoice generated. So we've looked at the client, the calendar reports. And kind of the last thing we want to leave you with is this, again, this feature that we've added into the platform. It's been there for a few months now. It's called the notification. It's on the top or bottom right corner. And by default, it's set to green. And that's sometimes we find feedback from customers can be an irritant. So we've got the option for you to turn on, turn off. So you can just click on it. Turns red, which means no more notifications. Click it, turns green. Give it a few minutes. And what happens is there's this new notification engine that we built into the platform. And this is giving you a summary of the data. It's not so much a reporting format, but it's quick snippets of data that may be of interest to you and your firm. There you go. You have 507 is the total number of clients whose referral source is not categorized. And it's a law society requirement to categorize all sources of clients. Okay. So how meaningful was that on a Friday afternoon? Don't know. But it's our duty to tell you that. This tells you within the last year. You can say, I got it. Thank you very much. Turn it on, turn it off. Interestingly enough, if you want a reporting format of these specific, interesting analytical data components of it, and that was a pretty large English statement, you can turn off this and you can generate these unique data elements that we're capturing. And you could say, all right, amuse me, combine client matter, finance-related capabilities. Again, some of them may be compliance-related, some of them are not. And this is kind of the last report that I really want to show you as part of today's webinar. So what's the number one category of your referral source? Client referral. You have 79 clients from it. Pretty cool to tell you that. Clients whose birthday, depending on if you've captured that data, of course, right? Okay, so on and so forth. Total number of active matters fully invoiced, 184. Great. So again, this is under, once again, under your quick view, document generation, and analytics. Okay? Let me just turn this off. And there you go. So you have a variety of reports that can be generated out of the uLaw platform. And a prerequisite to all of this, of course, is that you have the data in to begin with. And that's why we highlight and certainly emphasize the need for you to enter this data on a very periodic, timely fashion so that both for compliance and other reasons, the data out is our responsibility to help you with and be able for you to generate at a click of a button. Okay, so with that, I'll thank you for your time this afternoon, and I'll stop the webinar and open up the floor for any questions that you may have. Thank you. Yeah, so sometimes what happens is if you have a screen open, so let's say, and this is a question regarding the bill notification. So if I have the analytics open, I'm not able to click because the focus is not on the main screen. So you need to close out of that, and then you'd be able to get the focus. So sometimes it's that. But if it's beyond that, do email us or reach out to our support, and we'll be able to help. But mostly it's a case where you may have another screen that's opened, like that, and then the focus is not on the bell anymore, it's on the screen. You just close out and then turn on, turn off. I believe we're working on this report. There's a question about what invoices are paid. We'll definitely follow up with you on this. That's a great request, and I think we're pretty much dealing with that. And then I think we do have a solution. We've just not launched it into the platform yet. Actually, we do have a place where you can generate. So the question is, do we have one place where you can generate all the invoices that have been generated? That's a different question from the previous one. So there is one under Invoice List where you can generate all the invoices generated for that time period. And this is the same template that we're going to be utilizing to also update the status, whether it's been paid or not. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, I'd certainly want to thank you for your time today. I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And this is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel as early as Monday. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a great weekend ahead. Look forward to seeing you next week.